Hey, what it do? It's the Lou Review, where today I'll be reviewing Mr. Controversy himself, Kanye West, and his album known as My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Some context of this album, if need be. I feel it's a little important to discuss um, what happened around this time. There was a little bit of controversy. I mean, Kanye's a controversial artist. He is currently now. Anyone that follows music knows that. Um, but around the time before this was released in 2009, he interrupted the MTV Music Video Awards for Taylor Swift. And it was a whole controversy. He was viewed as the bad guy, blah, blah, blah. That being said, I'm not letting any outside stuff impact my rating on this album. The first track of this album is Dark Fantasy. And you're greeted by Nicki Minaj, who does this little annoying voice in my mind. It's a little exaggerated and overdone, but I do respect the effort put into it and her playing her role. And the backing vocals around it are, you know, all right. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it all is ultimately redeemed by that piano key that strikes and the song truly starts. And the vocals from Justin Vernon and uh, Tayana Taylor are so hypnotizing when they go, "Oh, can we get much higher?" And then it's followed by "So high, oh, oh, oh." I'm not going to attempt to sing it because I will sound awful. And it's just a beautiful thing. They're angelic, and it brings this feeling for me at least that like if I were to lay in bed, I was just levitating. Um, when the first drum hits, the piano keys switch up into this catchy little jingle with little like sparkle sounds, add this fantasy aspect to it, like Tinkerbell is flying around. And the beat switches throughout the song from verses to chorus, and it does it smoothly. I love the clever lyrics throughout the song. For example, the irony with Mercy, Mercy Me, that line, and then the immediate mention of Mercy Aligo being a Lamborghini. And for anyone that doesn't know, Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology is a song by Marvin Gaye, and it's discussing the mistreatment of the environment in the world. And the mention of a luxury car is going to contribute to the mistreatment of the world with the gas that it be used. And also, right following that, the Spanish bar, absolutely loved it, where instead of saying I, proper English there, he used me, saying me drown sorrow in that Diablo, following the Mino Hablo to make the rhyming scheme work. And I just really love that. Though the verse is with isn't without its flaws, as Sleepy Hollow is little confusing. Like the headless horseman doesn't have a head, so waking up with no head, even though you just mentioned so much head, is a little odd to me. Yes, you could stretch it, like the head was so good he lost his mind or his head. But even if that is the intent, it is not the brightest moment on this track. And the second verse, it has one of my favorite lyrics of all time in Kanye's discography. The plan was to drink until the pain over, but what's worse, the pain or the hangover? An absolute classic and probably Kanye's greatest bar in my mind. And his vocals aren't notoriously exquisite, but his singing at the end of that verse was beautiful. And I do feel his voice is a little out of place on the bridge as it sounds so basic with the voice effects that Vernon's vocals has. But overall, I do enjoy the song. Following that, we have Gorgeous. The guitar on this track is very annoying to me, personally at least. It's just the same thing over and over again. And I just wish it was not that loop throughout the verses and the chorus. At least, like, it sounds to me, it definitely changes at times, but to me, it's just so repetitive to a point where it's just boring. And it's nothing like very unique and it's repetitive. And it's like, okay, I'm chill with that. Like, for me, just does not click and it just sounds like the same thing over and over again. And I just wish there was variance. Though the vocals from Kid Cudi are welcome any day of the week, along with Kanye's lyrics throughout most of the song. discussing the oppressions of black people in America, with blacks getting more time than whites. He mentions the police brutality and unfair search procedures, not to mention the line with cash and AIDS, drawing attention to the conspiracy theory that the government planned to AIDS sort of to take out people of color and gays throughout like the 80s. And the second verse, he continues this, discussing the soul of African American culture, went from soul music to hip hop being the new religion, references to Malcolm X's civil rights movement, stereotypes with employment options for blacks having to be something athletic. And even when Muhammad Ali struggled with something as simple as a name change due to being of color. The South Park line did feel out of place with everything he built up in this verse, because the verse was so heavy on, discussing the social inequalities, and then just switching over to something as silly and petty as the fish sticks episode to just address that, which by the way, like, it might have just proved the writers of South Park correct, honestly, because he just didn't get the joke, I think. He still doesn't. But it throws off the vibe that was created here. But with Kanye's lyrics, I should say lyrics here, specify that. I have learned to take the good with the bad. The third verse was a bore to me outside of a couple add ons to his second verse, comparing a black beetle as a roach instead of just a normal beetle. And it is why on flights he sits in coach instead of better seating. And what really brings the song down for me is I'm not a fan of what Raekwon has added. I understand what he's going for, but there's no connection to what Kanye had beautifully built up throughout the entire song of these injustices and oppression that he was going through. And it just killed the vibe for me completely when his verse hits. But more popular song off album, which everybody and their grandmother knows, the next track, Power. The 21st Century Schizoid Man sample is wonderful in my opinion. I enjoy it every time it plays. And the little background clapping, wonderful. He's thunderous drums throughout the song. But the fact to hear this little tiny guitar string, specifically in my right ear, just this faint background when the sample isn't being played is super annoying to me. Like, I don't hear it in my left ear. I hear it in my right only. And it's just annoying, and it gets on my nerves a little bit. But his mention about screams of the haters being his theme music is a very enticing thought to me, and I do love that line. I also love him addressing race yet again with the flawed education and justice systems and the egotistical part of his personality, as he has all of this power and he is making these not so informed decisions. And I also love how he tells SNL to shove it where the sun don't shine with this yet again ego he has. And he addresses it and talks his shit. And I love that. The third verse has some standout moments on it, such as another line that I love. Um, they say I was the abomination of Obama's nation. Love that line to death. And he discusses how he derides himself, which, if it wasn't obvious, he did the entire song discuss that. And finally, at the end of the song, there's this little laughing and the repeated lyrics throughout it over and over. Like the way it just sounded to me, the production change for the last 10 seconds is a little annoying to me. That's just some light nitpicking as I do. Next, All of the Lights interlude here. This track has this melodic sound with a slow cello playing along with piano keys. That's really all it is. The keys and the cello playing sound awfully miscoordinated, at least to me, and they do not complement one another at all, in my opinion. And I mean, occasionally it's okay and it's bearable, but it just feels like the song overstays its welcome by 1 minute and 2 seconds. So it overstays its welcome completely. But it transitions to a more uh, welcoming track, All of the Lights, which I absolutely adore Rihanna's vocals on the chorus. But if I hear one more, whoa, whoa, like if I hear that and the la la, like one more time on that song, I will lose my mind. It's nice when the chorus is playing. At the very end, when the song is ending, I just cannot stand it continuing going on and on over and over again. This song is all over the place, and I don't feel like the lyrics have one direction, but I would assume it is the pressure of life with all of the lights on you and all different aspects. At least that's how I interpreted it, with spotlight of being famous, rock life with partying, hot lights, legal pressures, etc. Um, I do not think the production is perfect. I would say it is, but like it is very catchy. And around the end of the song, though, there's just like little dun da in the background that sounds somewhat robotic and is unneeded for me personally. Like I just really heard it playing along with the production, and that's just yet again me nitpicking. Um, some people might not hear that, and I'm happy for you, but once I hear it, I can't unhear it. Though the horns I find fantastic throughout the song. And the drums are groovy to me. It makes me want to bop my head, and the chorus does too. I cannot take away how often the chorus gets stuck in my head because the song is so catchy. Cuddy's voice on the bridge is enjoyable for me, but I'm not a fan of the lyrics. It's the repeat of the same words over and over again, and it doesn't hold much value to me. Onto the sixth track of the album Monster. This song, much like dark fantasy, it's perfectly produced in my mind. The screams in the background on the hook slash chorus are very enjoyable to me, as well as the drums throughout the song. And Vernon's voice on this intro is so fucking good. It sounds fuzzy to me. I don't know how to explain it. But when he goes, and then like at the first line of the song, and then the second line goes, hi, like I cannot do it. But and the last line of what he says to, "Are you willing to sacrifice your life?" Like, I just love the way that entire thing sounds. And if the song ended there for those first 20 seconds, that was all the song was, I'm being genuine, I would call it perfect. Like, I just listen to it every time I get to the 20-second mark, I'll rewind it because I just love it so much. But sadly, the track doesn't end there. And Rick Ross is cool and all, nothing bad with his lines, but I feel like there was no need for the introduction to Kanye. He doesn't add much to the song, in my opinion. For me, Kanye's chorus is very catchy throughout the song, though. The gossip, gossip, just stop it, and profit, profit, I got it. Kanye's verse is like almost perfect as well. I love every line throughout it besides Swallow Ship. I do hate the spatial audio on the last chorus as the vocals are spread out from both sides. And to me, at least, like it does not sound the same note. Um, but going back to Kanye's uh, verse, I don't know why he skips to the end of the song, but whatever, I don't care. You'll just follow along with me. Um, going back to Kanye's first verse, he absolutely killed it. I loved when he went triple double, no assists, and when he was saying his eyes were more red than the devil, and are all examples. But the big one from that verse is the line, "Have you ever had sex with a pharaoh? Ah, put the pussy in a sarcophagus. Now she claiming that I bruised her esophagus." It makes me chuckle when I listen to it, and his voice saying "gus" sounds emphatic to me. And I would, be able to go without Jay Z talking about the monsters there are at the start of his verse, but him talking about love being his weakness and how everyone around him just wants him for money was done well in my mind, and I love that, calling them bloodsuckers. And I feel like Nicki's verse was great, but it just doesn't follow what the vibes were going for from Kanye or Jay Z. And I feel like her verse is just taking her stuff and going off about how good she is rather than talking about how much of a monster she is outside of her talking about like her money. The outro is beautiful yet again. Vernon doing a wonderful job here, though I would prefer Charlie Wilson to not be adding on to the song with his voice. Like it feels unnecessary and feels like it comes from like soul and R&B vibes, and it just does not fit what Monster was going for in my opinion. Anyways, next song, "So Appalled." Please save me from this. The refrain from Swiss Beats is unbearable for me. His voice is so annoying. I cannot hear him say ridiculous without wanting to lose my mind. Same with the rest of this song. And can he please not say "here" like every time Kanye says something on that first verse? I do like his little rhyme scheme when he went. Uh, I do like Kanye's little rhyme scheme when he went. That was a little joke. Voila, praises due to the Most High, Allah. Praises due to the Most Fly, Prada. Baby, I'm magic, tada. Like the way he just did that flowed so naturally, and it just makes me like, yeah, again, chuckle a little bit. I enjoyed it. But for the overall verse, it just seemed like he was flexing cash and wanting sex with women and telling people to screw off for like the 500th time on this album. Um, the production through this is all right. It is just a couple of yelling and random effects with some well executed drums and claps. Also, if I hear 30 white bitches, I will also lose my mind if I hear that again. I get why it is there, like, but number one, it is annoying, and number two, sexualizing white women for no reason, or just sexualizing women in general for no reason, somewhat degrading. Like, I can't find the reason why they're picking women, white women specifically, sexualize. Like, okay, cool, I guess you find them attractive, but like, still, I just feel like in general is unnecessary, and I find the use of bitch in rap songs often to be thrown around too much at females, and I feel it is just really lazy with the writing, and there's not much actual meaning and purpose behind the use of it. um but nonetheless, Jay-Z's verse is all right to me. But starting off with how much money he has is really just something that immediately bores me. Flexing cash in this blatant, boring way takes a lot out of my enjoyment for the song. Like, no, duh, you were Jay Z, you have money, we get it. And like, another 30 million won't hurt you, we get it. But um, Pusha T's verse was executed amazingly for what he was going for, and it's the best verse so far on the song. Him talking about where he came from, and his line about never meeting a girl who didn't need some guidance was enjoyable as well. But onto the only thing for me, at least, that makes a song truly worth listening to is Sci-Hi. I do not know how to pronounce it. Sci-Hi, Ci, the Prince. Yes, his verse was boastful, and I've I've mentioned not a big fan of boastfulness, but um, he just did it to perfection when he did it. With the lines Abernathy, so called my lady Rosa Parks. I am nothing like them dudes, baby. Those are marks. I met this girl on Valentine's Day, fucked her in May. She found about April, so she decided just did it to perfection. The lines. Abernathy, so called my lady Rosa Parks. I am nothing like them dudes, baby. Those are marks. I met this girl on Valentine's Day, fucked her in May. She found about April, so she chose to March. Ha, damn, another broken heart. I keep bitches by twos. Dude, Noah's Ark. Like, I love that. That is probably, like, that set off that, not only my favorite lyrics off this album as a whole, but probably my favorite bars, like me personally, from any song in hip hop I've ever listened to. I just love that. And it's the only reason I ever really revisit that song is to hear that part specifically. And RZA, respectfully, I love you. I love your music, but you do not need to be on this track. I hated him on his verse when he says ridiculous. It sounds to me like he's saying syphilis. Like, I'm sorry. I just can't. And it's just overbearing and annoying. And on to Devil in a New Dress. And production is fun on the song. The drums on every track so far have been wonderful. And I like the sampled voices, like the sampled vocals that you hear on this track sometimes, but sometimes not. I'm not a fan. It's hit or miss at what point in the song I'm hearing it. Um, but the song is beautiful in covering a relationship that is flawed and has its battles, arguments, but isn't an actual relationship. Though Dean's guitar solo between Ye's verse and Rick's is done exceptionally well. The first couple of seconds bores me every time I listen to it, like first 3 seconds or so. Now the piano keys and with that startup is great, But again, what just pisses me off is the lack of consistency from features. They don't understand how to fucking build off of what Ye has been building. These are his songs, not theirs. He is setting the tone, and all Rick Ross talks about is a lavish lifestyle and murder, and like pray for the one I have the sights over, blah blah blah. Uh, lavender shoes, blah blah blah. Like, please, please, you only mentioned the romance, any romance aspect. You only mentioned it in the first two lines of your verse and the last two lines of your verse. And it was barely discussing it. And it just annoys me. Please stick to what Kanye was doing. This is not your album. This is not your song. You can do that on your own album. Like, you do not have creative control like that here. Um, Going into the ninth song, though, we have Runaway. Now, this is Kanye's magnum opus in my mind. Runaway, while I prefer the single version without his vocals yelling at the end, this song is still perfect to me. But I do believe if it was any other instrument out there, like playing in place of his voice, playing those exact same notes, like the last 3 minutes of the song would be boring for sure. Like for a guitar, it would not be impressive if a guitar was making that sound. But the runaway concept of saving yourself from him, like him telling her to save herself and just run away, is like so heart touching and heartbreaking. And it's the greatest Kanye song ever. Him setting a toast to the douchebags, telling the girl, "You have put up with my shit for too long," as he has this asshole mantra, which is perfectly done through Pusha T's verse and the repeating piano, by the way, that starts up this song for the first 50 seconds. I can't believe I didn't mention that until just now. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. Kanye's vocals are done so well, filled with this heavy emotion. I feel it deep from his heart that he like really put his all into this. This is one of the few songs that like makes me cry no matter my mood. Yes, I am human and I cry. This song is perfect and anything less will not be accepted. Onto the 10th track of the album, Hell of a Life. I like the production on this, the little static like sounds on the beats with the clock ticking sort of throughout. The piano keys sound like lasers to me. And at first, I found the whole anal gangbang part a little corny to be his dark fantasy on this album, as there aren't many sexual dark desires referenced throughout the album. But upon further examination, I've interpreted this record's dark fantasy like being the girl herself as Kanye's fantasy and living life with her. But it was a bore, like for me initially, to just figure out that just anal and gangbang, like really, like you can just search that up. And that's easily foundable. Like Tyler the Creator's Bastard had more exciting fantasies on it, like that were really dark and twisted. And I was expecting something like that on this album, and I wasn't given that. And I was like, man, really? Either way, though, I do enjoy the chorus and hook on this. But the whole marrying a porn star and she was a porn star is a little bit of a bore too. Like it's a little corny, a little bit, just a little bit. And I know I expect that from Kanye, and that's fine. Like that's what I expect when I listen to his music. A couple corny lines here and there, and I will take it. Like I'll enjoy it. I love it. That's Kanye. That's his music. But this is a little too much here for me. I don't know how many times they need to repeat the words about having to fuck with the lights on. It is annoying to a degree, like that I didn't know was possible. This album is just pushing my limits here with levels of annoyance that I find. It's just repeated so much, and also the moans throughout the track that are done like, would have been cool if it was done right, but they sound, like, fake and fabricated to me, like, if the Google Translate female voice was making the sounds for him. The drum rolls throughout this, song are basic too, but I do love the outro, and when he mentioned getting divorced by the end of the night, that's one hell of a life when he does that whole thing. I loved hearing that part, that was enjoyable when he wrapped it up there. Um, Track 11, Blame Game. John Legend's vocals are beautiful, and I love the "I'll call you bitch for short, you call me motherfucker for long." And the lyrics of this is a masterpiece, but the drums and I swear, there's this little maraca sound like playing. It's annoying, and also the mixing is garbage on this. It is awfully done. Nothing is evenly like spaced out in my earbuds when I'm listening. No production factor is besides the piano keys. Kanye's voice is a little annoying with his like whole concept of little voices in his head where that's like going between your ears, like going one earbud, another, back and forth. Like his little interlude there is cool in theory, but it just feels awkward there. And his voice just sounds so bland. But the concept of this song's lyrics are beautiful. Like the lines, I can't love you this much. And then the lines in the first verse, I'd rather argue with you than be with someone else. Um, like that first verse was done to perfection. And I just wish the rest of this song was too. Now, the part I hate about the song, like I just truly despise, is the Yeezy taught me. Like, if holy, I will lose my mind if I hear that one more time. Like, I'm genuinely breaking my headphones, breaking my computer, never listening to music again. That's a little exaggeration, but it sounds like she's just this robotic person, like just kidnapped and brainwashed to be a slave almost. Like, has no soul. It's just so dehumanizing. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like an android almost. And is her voice is also annoying just in general, the way it sounds. Not to mention, I did not want to hear Chris Rock talk about how much he enjoys pussy. That was not on my bucket list in life. There's one line that does make me chuckle, and it is when he says, "I'ma shoot the bootlegger." And that is like the only somewhat redeeming quality of this whole entire skit. But outside of that, it is not funny in the slightest. I do not chuckle once. I do not smile once. I do chuckle though when he says, "Imma shoot the bootlegger." That makes me giggle a little bit. My ears get a break from the garbage that it witnessed before with Lost in the World. Now, the slow start of this is beautiful with the auto tune. I enjoy the cool drums that make me want to groove along and bop my head. Plus the ooh ooh like auto tune throughout is welcome anytime on this track. Like only this one though. Usually it bothers me on other songs. I don't know why this one I love it so much. The chorus is a chef's kiss, but the verse is pretty mediocre. Like "You're my devil, you're my angel, you're my freedom, you're my jail." Like it's just a bunch of opposing nouns and adjectives, and it's very lazy in my mind. But I do love the auto tune and the vocals still. The pre-chorus and the chorus, along with the bridge, eventually transitions perfectly into "Who Will Survive in America" is wonderful, which leads on to "Who Will Survive in America," which I'm still not 100% of the purpose of this track. My perspective on this is that Kanye is using Gil Scott Heron's, I do not know how to pronounce that. I probably messed that up. But his words that the country is damned and the future is uncertain, but also that Kanye is unsure what his future in America will be and what will be next for him after this album. I also enjoy the drumming as well throughout and the way it speeds up towards the end. Um, if I were to, which I am because that's what I do in these videos, rate this album, I'd give this album a 5 to a light sit. Nah, I'm playing. But seriously, this album is a 7 for me personally, though I understand if someone were to say it was like a 9 or a 10. I completely understand that. Tell me what you thought about this album. Did you love it? What do you want to see me review next? Let me know everything in the comments and anything in the comments. Have a wonderful day.